Goodman and Hummel podcast, and we got Robbie Hummel.
I'd known you since you were a kid.
I could blow my knee out, both knees, and still kick your ass.
We're trying to find the Robbie Hummel statue.
I wanted to kill you.
All right, welcome in another episode of the Goodman and Hummel podcast. I'm Jeff Goodman. He is Robbie Hummel, and I'm tired today. I'm a little tired today, Robbie.
You actually had to give an honest day's work of you did After Dark last night.
Yeah, late.
And I was gracious enough to come on too. And now you've had to actually dig and do some work today, Jeff.
We had a podcast set up to record this morning at 11:30 Eastern time, and it was going to be a little bit of a roast of you, me, Matt Painter, and you. And then I don't know if I believe it, but you're trying to get out of the roast because you said your flight got pushed back because of inclement weather in Chicago.
I said last night, I just dialed up the Lord and I just called God, and I was like, God, I hate Jeff so much. Would you please give me an ice storm in Chicago so I am delayed 3 hours?
But the difference is we're doing the pod anyway. You could have done the pod with your coach, your guy.
The point was his schedule did not work around any other time. I was on a plane till 12:30 in the afternoon. They got practice. What do you want me to do?
We'll get Payne on. We're going to get Payne on at some point this year. I also still feel like we don't do a lot of off-season pods, but I feel like we need Mom and Dad Hummel on an off-season pod. Like, I'm still fighting for this.
What would we talk about?
Whatever. I don't care. Listen, I'll have plenty to ask them about.
The most embarrassing stories of my life.
There'll be some of that.
I wonder what would be the most embarrassing. Also, we talked about the talent show that I was in last week.
Yeah.
I think I've locked down all the people that could potentially rat this. I've had to, talk to some of my people.
You were worried.
I am a little worried that could surface because there are multiple people that probably have the video.
See?
And I'm so mad at my mom for being like, dude, Saturday Night Fever. That was a bad choice.
I mean, I can't believe you actually talked about it on the pod. That was the most shocking thing is knowing that if you speak about something like this, I'm going to put my reporter hat on. You know what it is?
I think it's because I know you don't work that hard as a journalist. So I'm really not afraid of you digging that hard. Like, today is the hardest you've probably worked in, I don't know, 4 years.
Yeah, it was a tough day. It was a really tough day, let me tell you.
And you still had time to go to lunch with your parents. So, yes, fill us in on what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, there had been some rumblings yesterday on discussions taking place with Indiana and Mike Woodson about some sort of exit plan. And I put out there earlier today that he's contemplating retirement. Obviously, it's a, forced retirement. They're not winning. They've lost 6 of their last 7. Didn't make the tournament last year. Right now, they're on the outside looking into the bubble. Things are not going well. And what I reported too was he's lost a lot of the support he had from the big money people. And those were the guys that were bankrolling him this year for NIL and sticking by him this season. When, remember, Scott Dolson had to make a public comment last year after the season saying that Mike Woodson would be back this year. They want to do it the right way. He's one of their own, Rob. They want to give him the dignity and class of retiring rather than potentially firing him. So that's why I use that terminology as much as anything else. But it doesn't look good that Mike Woodson will be the head coach next season at Indiana. And I think, the hope is here you can get ahead of it too. If you're Scott Dolson, your Indiana administration, you can, if you're moving on from him, you can start talking to agents of other potential candidates and get ahead of this thing so that, really in March, when everything becomes open, right? There's a bunch of jobs that'll come open at that point. You've already ruled out some guys, right? You've already called potentially a Brad Stevens, which again, I don't see any chance he takes it, just like I said last time. But you want to make sure, right? You want to make sure that's fair. So you call some of these guys and you can kind of cross them off the list, a Brad Stevens, a Scott Drew, some of those guys. But again, I think Indiana administration wants to handle this the right way and let Mike Woodson kind of figure out how he wants to go out, whether he wants to coach the rest of the season, whether he wants to potentially step down, retire right away. So that's where we're at right now. Discussion's still going on.
I just want to make a comment about, I guess, I don't know anything about this. This is not kind of the lane that I roll in. It is definitely more of your forte. But think about how different Indiana's season looks if a couple last 7 minutes of a couple games go differently. Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like that's down to the wire, 5 minutes to go, and it totally just gets they get blown out. Northwestern, same thing. Yep. Maryland, you're talking 1 play, 2 plays.
Yeah.
And Purdue, same thing, kind of. Like they have certainly had some issues. Wisconsin was the first time outside of the Iowa and Illinois were not competitive. Illinois especially. That was not a competitive game. But the Wisconsin game, I've done like all of these games, but the Wisconsin game was like from the jump, not ready to play. And granted, I think in fairness to Indiana's team, you have 2 catastrophic losses that come down to the wire, and eventually you're just emotionally and physically fatigued from that. And that's what it looked like. But whatever happens with this situation, it's just like, man, they are, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there from this looking a lot different, but the reality is this is kind of, become a trend of some of these late game meltdowns.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a combination of late game meltdowns and getting blown out.
That's the thing too. The losses early were like, we don't just lose, but we're losing by 30.
Exactly.
Like that. And Illinois was that way, and Iowa was that way too.
So we'll see kind of what happens, Rob, as we're recording right now at about 6:30.
You got me on call.
Eastern time. Well, we just don't know. This is a fluid situation.
Sure.
And I think they're hoping Mike Woodson comes back to administration and says, hey, you know what? I am going to retire after this season. And then he gets to coach the rest of the season. And I think the fans, instead of maybe booing him, which they have been doing, and the crowd have been saying fire Woodson. Hopefully it kind of flips, and I don't know how much you'll appreciate him, but it's not a situation where it's toxic. It's toxic. Yeah, it had been toxic, and I think especially Dusty May coming in Saturday. Michigan comes in, former IU manager. Listen, if this is out there now, I think it's a little bit better for Mike Woodson, and the fact that I think hopefully they're not as harsh on him as they've been. Because again, listen, he is an IU great, and he did connect some of the former players, not all of them, but he did connect a certain segment of former players from the Pat Knight era, which hadn't been done under Archie Miller.
Did you say Pat Knight or Bob Knight?
Bob Knight. I'm sorry, Bob Knight. And Pat Knight.
Say what?
And Pat Knight.
Pat played?
Both of them. Pat Knight and Bob Knight.
I will say that with Indiana, that is not an easy thing to bridge all of the gaps because of all of the what's the right word? All of the kind of different segments. The early night versus the late night versus the Mike Davis versus the Tom Crean versus the Sampson team. Like you look at Michigan State and Purdue since 1980, there have been 2 coaches, right? Like Indiana has had so many, and it's different when your college coach is gone. It is a different dynamic when you go back to school.
All right, next up. This is not going to be the most positive pod that we've ever done. I'm not going to lie to people. We're going to move on to the Fighting Illini in Champaign.
Right.
And last night, they laid an egg early. I mean, they were atrocious in the first half. You were there, Rob, and at the rack in Rutgers. Ace Bailey. Dylan Harper was back, and he looked phenomenal.
Yeah, he was
but I don't want to
special
talk
last
about Rutgers. I don't want to talk about Rutgers because I
Aren't
want
we
to
gonna
talk
about Dylan a little bit?
maybe. We'll see. We'll see. I want to talk about the Alliance.
You always divert from the plan. We talk on the phone before these podcasts. Believe it or not, we don't just like throw the ball up and play. The plan was we would talk about Dylan Harper. So I'm guessing we will get to him. I don't know why you just said that, but let's talk Illinois.
Let's talk Illinois first because, man, I cannot figure them out. They are the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team. We loved them a month or so ago. Rob Dosser was pronouncing them as a Final Four contender, of this. And I don't think too many people were arguing back then. I really don't because, you
when they beat Oregon the way they beat Oregon,
smack.
And I think Oregon has certainly slipped up here.
Yeah.
But Oregon is talented. Like you look at Oregon's
they had some good wins. This
Oregon
Illinois
has
team.
Oh, yeah. And Oregon has a lot of quality wins. So that was a great win.
I mean, they went to Indiana and smashed, and that was before Indiana's kind of fall here. But yeah, Oregon, Missouri,
Wisconsin at home is a good win.
Missouri's been really good.
Arkansas's aging better.
Yeah, so like this Illinois team has the peaks like up here and the valleys like as low can go. And the biggest question mark that everybody has right now for Illinois is why the hell, and I'd love to get Brad Underwood. He probably would come on. We probably could just text him right now and he'd probably jump on and answer this question. But like, Brad, why are you letting these dudes take a million threes when you can't make shots right now?
Well, especially when the opponent is Rutgers, whose 2-point defense is so bad.
Right.
And you just won the Ohio State game because you drove the ball and got to the foul line. They are not a good 3-point shooting team, and they shoot a ton of threes. It's a lot like the Matt Meyer team. That team from 2 years ago where they were not a good shooting team, but they shot a lot of threes. I think, Illinois' thought process is even if we miss, we have a good offensive rebounding team, and they really got to the offensive glass last night. But that Nebraska game was crazy to see just the shots they were taking, especially in overtime. It was like a 3-point contest. And I think in fairness to Illinois, they have dealt with, sickness. Ivisic getting mono, that really hurts them. Trey White did not play last night because he was dealing with some sort of sickness. Yakachonis had the wrist injury that he dealt with, but he hasn't, you plagiarized me last night on After Dark.
I didn't. I told you. I watch you on mute.
I said, no, you don't, because you text me during the games and I'm doing a shitty job.
Even on mute, I know that. I don't need to listen.
So you don't listen, you just assume. And you know what happens when you assume? You make an ass of you and me. But the thing is, I said on the broadcast, it does look a little bit freshman wall-like, and everybody deals with that. And Will Riley kind of dealt with that, early in the season. Now, I don't know if it was just he was playing bad or he's going through a wall. Will Riley has come out the other side. He's playing great. But I think a lot of Illinois' ceiling was based on, all right, Kasparas Yakachonis is a lottery pick and maybe even a high one, like a 5, 6, 7 type guy. And he's turned it over a good amount. And you live with some of his turnovers because he is terrific in pick and roll. He can really play make, but some of them have been a little bit head scratching. He's not shooting it great. And you look at Illinois, they're in the 300s of minutes continuity. They have one guy back that played meaningful minutes last year, and they're not even really that meaningful. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn played like 2 minutes a game last season. So, Ty Rodgers is redshirting. You lose a lot of guys from last year's team that goes to the Elite Eight. But their offense has just been, man, it's been hard to watch. And
can they flip this, Rob? Like, where's your confidence level now with Illinois, whether they can flip it back? Because
I think they're scary because they're talented and they've shown that they're capable, right? Like they have had performances where you're impressed with the way they look, but the schedule this Minnesota game is honestly huge. At Minnesota Saturday is massive because then you've got UCLA at home, Michigan State at home, You're at Wisconsin. You play Duke on a neutral. You've got Iowa at home. You've got Michigan away, and you've got Purdue. So it's like it's a gauntlet for them here down the back stretch. And that's kind of what's exciting, I think, about the Big Ten is that a lot of the teams at the top haven't played the best teams. Right. You know, their schedules are backloaded. So we're going to have some real drama as we make our way towards the end of the season. But I don't know. It's kind of like 2 years ago where I'm like, man, if they would just get to the paint, man, like get the ball to the paint, post up your bigs, get to the offensive glass, get to the foul line, get some easy baskets.
How did Brad look? Like to you, does he look frustrated? Like, no, seriously, like how frustrated does he look after this slide?
I mean, I'm sure he is frustrated. Yeah, I think he's pretty frustrated with just the way it's going. And certainly because, you know, you lose Summit at home, you know, you lose to USC at home, you lose to Maryland by 21 at home, and then you've gone on the road and had some opportunities like Nebraska, you're right there, Rutgers, you're right there, Michigan State, you're right there, even with Yakachonis in foul trouble for, I think he played like 8 minutes. So I think he's frustrated. You know, their losses have been Northwestern in overtime, the Tennessee game, it's just like down to the wire. They've had some really crushing defeats here, but they are talented.
Minnesota game, like you said. This Minnesota game, if you lose it,
and Minnesota's playing better.
Michigan State at home, and it's like, man, like
Minnesota is playing better. Ben Johnson's doing a nice job there.
No, like again, this team is just it's hard to figure. I'm not sure there's a more difficult team to try to figure out than this Illinois team because you can't question their talent. You know. They've got enough pieces. It's not like they don't fit together. And I do think they're better shooters than they've shown, certainly than they've displayed. But, again, at some point you are what the numbers say.
What your numbers say. And they are last in the league in conference play in three-point percentage.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rithmm app. Spelled R-I-T-H-M-M, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rithmm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in Rithmm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rithmm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
Boy, another
27%.
Another team that's struggling, Robbie, is the North Carolina Tar Heels. And I know you haven't watched a ton of them, so I'm not asking you to break down their team or what they've done. RJ Davis looks a little bit overwhelmed. He doesn't have enough help, especially up front, to free him up. Ian Jackson was terrific for a stretch, but he looks like he's hit a little bit of a wall here, and people figured out, he came on kind of a third of the way through the season, so there was like no book on him. He kind of came out of nowhere, so he was explosive. He's fun to watch, all that. They've lost now 4 of the last 5, with the only win being a Boston College victory at home in overtime that they should have lost. They really don't have any good wins. I mean, literally, Rob, their best win is UCLA. Dayton on a neutral court would probably be number 2. They played a challenging schedule, but I guess what I want to get to more than anything is what's okay. Like, are you okay? And I know you're not a guy who's out there like I am in terms of, and I'm not trying either. Hubert Davis is like the nicest human being ever.
Yeah.
But you go year one and you go to the national title game, but let's face it, it was a little fluky. You weren't great for most
No,
of the year.
they rode the heater.
The ultimate heater, like no heater like we've ever seen before. They flipped that thing in a month. They went from being on the bubble to going to the national title game. Year two was highly disappointing for Hubert, right? And then year three
You said
last
that like
year,
a question.
highly disappointing. Yes.
Yeah.
Year three was terrific last year. They bring in Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram. You got Baycott, you got RJ.
Lose by 2 in the Sweet 16 to a team that goes to the Final Four. No shit.
And they were really, really good in the regular season. And now year four again, it's much like a couple of years ago when they weren't very good and they're on the bubble and they're not going to catch fire like they did that year. Let's face it. There's no way in hell. They don't have the personnel to be able to do that. So my question to you is like, is this enough? If you're a North Carolina fan, is this enough for you to ride the roller coaster every other year where you're relevant and then, every other year you're fighting just to get in the tournament?
What is Carolina's NIL situation? Because I would just think with Michael Jordan's affiliation that they would probably be in pretty good shape.
You would think so, right? Nike, Jordan brand, all that.
I mean, they're
stuff.
one of the premier Nike schools. They're as blue as a blue blood can be. I would think that their NIL stuff is good.
Yeah.
It's hard, and I think, Indiana's situation is a little bit similar. When you have an alum, and Hubert has actually taken the team as a coach to the Final Four, on top of having a great NBA career and being a great player at North Carolina. So I hesitate to say that, making the ultimate change is the right play, but certainly I think some changes have to be made. Certainly North Carolina has got to do a better job of finding talent that fits. And I think you could honestly say the same about Indiana. Needs to do that as well. But something has to be different. I don't know if it needs to be Hubert is gone.
They're talking about a GM now, Rob. They're talking about
if that's what, but schools have that. So
some. I mean, Duke has it with Rachel Baker.
Yeah, Duke has one. I think
Rachel
Illinois
Baker
has it.
Came over
Illinois
from
just
Nike.
hired a guy from the NBA to be their GM. Like that's not unheard of. Teams have that.
I feel like the problem with Carolina has been a couplefold. Like one, obviously in the portal, they didn't deliver. They didn't get a big. They've got good NIL, not Arkansas, Kansas State, or Indiana NIL, but it's pretty good. The biggest thing for me is they're always behind. They're always
How so?
We're Carolina. We're going to do it our way until it's like, okay, you know what? It's not working. We've got to adapt. Duke was always ahead of the curve with adapting, right?
In terms of what? Like creativity from a marketing standpoint?
Everything. Yes, marketing. There was a moment there where Kay was not like, he was like media unfriendly for a little while. And then he changed even. He listened to the right people. And instead of like Carolina, it's always been like, well, Dean did it this way, so we're going to do it this way. Like a simple thing like freshmen not talking to the media until they, I think, play their first game or something like that. And it's like, why? Like Dean didn't let assistant coaches talk to the media. So I know from a media perspective, there's obviously other things too within how they did things. But, like they were late on sometimes offering kids. I bet the assumption was, well, we're Carolina. When we come in, we can come in later and we'll, we swing a pretty big stick. Right. Now you have a staff that, let's face it, you have Jeff Lebo, didn't do a whole hell of a lot last I checked at Auburn or Eastern Carolina. Sean May, who's young, green. You got one older dude who's been through the recruiting wars, and that's Brad.
Sean May, that young? Sean May's like 40.
That old? All right, he's young and coaching.
He played the national title game in 2004.
No, but he's young in coaching is what I'm saying. He doesn't have a lot of
2005.
experience in coaching. So you got one guy that's recruited at a high level, and that's Brad Frederick. I just and I just don't know. Like, again, I look at Shire and Duke and what they've done, and they go outside the family now for an assistant coach.
Like Jay Lucas.
Yeah, like Carolina is just so hell-bent on this is the way we do things, and they're just too late to the party here and trying to adapt and keep up. And again, I think part of it was they thought they didn't want to overpay for big men. I get it. Like Cliff Amore, like that's a lot of money what Alabama paid, and I don't think he's really delivered completely. But put Cliff Amore right now. But you
need a center, you need
put him on Carolina, Rob,
Maybe.
and this is a different ball game right now. We're not talking about them being a fringe tournament team. We're talking about Carolina probably being a 5 seed.
Think about if I told you 10 years ago that, let's just say that, hey, there's transfers that can be eligible immediately. Like, you have to understand that. But if I told you that a really good big is going to pick Alabama over North Carolina,
right?
What would you be like? Yeah, okay. Like,
right. No chance. Zero.
That's
Zero
incredible, man. That really is.
So again, I think Hubert gets one more year here, but I think obviously next year is a make or break year.
Well, and don't you think that if that's the case, something has got to be different next year?
Yeah, and it's not just a GM.
Yeah,
it's not just a GM. If I'm Bubba coming,
wouldn't you want to see, like, all right, what is our plan in the portal?
Yes.
Take me through how we're going to evaluate. Dude, nice microphone. Does that thing light up?
Like this? We got blue. We got some blue.
Like that's like Prince. Prince would use that mic.
Yeah. This
especially
is like
the purple side.
When I'm not doing the podcast with you, I belt out some tunes. That's what I do. I connect this thing. I connect the karaoke machine, and I just start belting out some tunes here.
Did I ever tell you the story about how I did this charity event in Minnesota, and it was supposed to be with Prince, but it ended up being with Dave Chappelle?
Still
and I played horse with Chappelle.
Really?
So my rookie year in Minnesota, this is sorry that we just went from Carolina to this, but yeah, the team was like, does anyone want to do a charity event with Dave Chappelle tonight and Prince? And no one wanted to, except for me and Roni Turia. I love the Chappelle show. I think it's the funniest show. I have all the DVDs. When I went overseas, I took all of them, watched them a million times. And I went, and Roni went, and we meet Dave, and he has definitely been smoking like a good amount. He's really nice. He sounds a lot like he does, kind of like when he's doing some of the voices in his skits. But he's like, all right, this event was called like Pancakes and Basketball for Charity, if you know anything about the Prince Charlie Murphy skit. And he's like, we're going to play horse. So Roni didn't want to play. So he's like, you play. So it's me and Chappelle. And Dave is like, all right, I got to pick some people. And he picks this random white dude out of the front row. And he comes up. And he picks somebody else, and they're out there. And this random dude, Dave's like, all right, his shot first. And this guy literally grabs the ball and goes up at the Target Center. There's probably like 5,500 people there. Like, the lower bowl is full.
Okay.
He goes up and dunks the shit out of the ball.
Really?
He's like 6 foot tall. And Dave was so high. He looks at me and goes, who the hell picked this guy? I was like, dude, you did. And then the funniest thing, I'll never forget this. He like disappeared for a while. And there's like just stuff going on in the Target Center. And me and Roni are like, all right, we've been here for a while. I played this horse game with Dave, and like, let's leave. Let's get out of here. So we're walking out the tunnel, and Dave comes back in, and I don't know what he was doing, but he was doing something back there. And he's like, are you guys leaving? And we're like, yeah, we're getting out of here. He's like, all right, see you next time. I'm like, when will this ever happen again?
Do you think he had any idea of your name?
No.
No idea.
No clue. No, but I honestly think it is the funniest thing that I played horse with Dave Chappelle.
That's pretty good. That was better than you meeting Carrot Top?
Carrot Top's my boy. He sent me a video on my birthday.
Did?
Yeah, we're friends, man.
Wow. You and
me and Carrot. It's my boy.
I mean, there's some similarities there.
both in great shape.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Hey, what do you think of Arkansas winning 2 in a row? Cal's back back
Yeah,
in the
mojo.
mix. They
The
beat
mojo's
Kentucky.
good there. He
Yeah.
went into Kentucky and like that was impressive, man.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
to do that, and boy, I bet they're feeling some heat in Lexington over that one. That was a game that I think Coach wanted to win there.
You think?
Coach
Not,
probably
not
wanted
just
that
Coach. Not just Coach. Everybody, Big Blue Nation.
Well, I mean, just for his sanity of this job is hard enough, right? But
it'll be interesting to see now how Pope hasn't really had much adversity at all so far this season.
Well, they've lost 4 or 5.
Correct. I'm seeing them next Tuesday. They play Tennessee at home.
What's been their biggest issue? Guarding?
Oh, it's awful. So bad. So bad. It wasn't great with Lamont Butler. And then
but he's a good
away.
defender. Oh, shit. They're 108 in defensive efficiency on KenPom. My God. What are they? And they're 16th in SEC play?
Well, you lose Butler on the defensive end, and you don't have a point guard right now.
Yeah.
You don't have a guy.
Is
Butler,
Kerr not playing?
He's probably done for the year.
Oh.
Yeah. So you don't have either of them.
Sorry to you and to Kerr.
Exactly.
You love Kerr.
I do love Kerr. I love Kerr. Kerr might be next year. Kerr might replace you on this pod.
I would love that. That would be great. The Creasa and Goodman podcast has a nice flow to it.
I mean, the numbers.
I will step down. I would happily step down. I would love that.
I'm going to tell Kerr on Tuesday. I'm going to let Kerr know on Tuesday that there's a standing invitation.
I would gift him my spot.
What would you give him? All your deferred money, your deferred compensation?
There's no benefits here. I don't get a pension. I don't get a
plenty of benefits. There's plenty of benefits.
I get the feeling in my heart of doing a good deed.
You get credibility. That's what you get out of this. You get instant credibility. That's what you've gotten out of this spot.
Yeah, as you lay back in your Florida villa. Yeah, it's so much credibility here. Let's talk about Dylan Harper.
All right, Dylan Harper. We'll end with Dylan Harper. All right, here's my question to you. Cooper Flagg has now become the unanimous number one.
I think he's definitely going to be the number 1 pick.
Would he, if I'm you, and you've seen more Dylan Harper than you have Cooper Flagg?
Well, I've seen Dylan Harper once, but he was hurt in Indiana. So I'm going to see him a couple times as long as he's healthy here over the next couple of weeks.
All right. So what impressed you the most, and who is the best comp to Dylan Harper? My comp, and it's not great, but my kind of comp a little bit, he's not quite as big. It's Kay Cunningham. In winning, intangibles, not a true point, but just he can make people better. He's not super explosive. Neither one of them are really. I don't know. I see a little bit of Cade in him.
Yeah, it's hard to say because he's got such good size, but his pace is whatever he wants. He doesn't get sped up. He's great at changing speeds. He can shoot it from 3. He can get to the rim. He can play in the mid range. He's just really good.
Really,
and
good.
The winning plays he made last night. When you're talking Ace Bailey versus Dylan Harper, the shot making for Ace can be mesmerizing. I think it can make you kind of holy shit, when you see him on a night where he's got it.
True.
And he was really impressive the first, 10 minutes of that game last night, where he made that step back and he's making plays, and he kind of got slowed down. But, I think the winning intangibles that Dylan Harper, that behind the back save where he ran the floor and then scored, there's a lot of little things to really like about his game, whereas I think Ace has a ways to go in that regard. But
they're
Ace
very different.
Ace could end up being like Paul George. He's 6'10". He can or somebody that's like a star. He really can. And not that Dylan can't be a great player in the league, but the ceiling for Ace Bailey is so high. But the floor for Dylan Harper is substantially higher because I think those intangibles, honestly.
So here's my biggest takeaway from Dylan Harper, and it's probably not one that most people would think of, but This is a guy who's been hurt for a month, and he could have easily shut it down. He's going to be the number 2 pick most likely, right?
Yeah.
Could have. They're not really playing. Maybe they can make the tournament, but it's an.
But he
outside
has
shot.
some equity in Rutgers program because of his brother. His brother played there.
Good
he
point.
grew up going to the games.
Yep.
He has grown up around Steve Peichel. I think that plays a part into this.
I think he's just a winning player.
No, I agree.
This, Rob.
But I think that deep down he really cares about Rutgers, and not that these other guys don't, that are like high end prospects, but and I'm not trying to sell out any of these guys that are going to be one and dones, but a lot of the times it's like, hey, I'm here for look at Ben Simmons. Do you think he cares about LSU?
No,
not at all.
He doesn't.
So I think that there is something there, but he's a winning player. But on top of that, he has equity from his family in that program.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I will say this: I think no matter where he was playing, I don't think that kid taps out. I don't.
Yeah,
think
and he likes to play. Like, he likes to play basketball.
You can tell, and
refreshing.
It was good to see him healthy. It was good to see him healthy. I would love it if they made a run and made it.
No, because and we talked about last night. You want the most talented dudes to have the chance to go on a crazy heater, and those two guys can't. Now they're going to have to go like 8-1 or 7-2 and win like 2 or 3 games in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah. They do have a good amount of Qualla wins, but their bad losses are Kennesaw on the road. That's a killer. Princeton in a neutral, like that hurts you. But that's where if you go 8-1, you can erase some of those bad losses. But they do have a decent amount of Qualla wins though.
Are there any other shows that that you could sing us other than Joseph and the amazing technical?
I can't tell you how many people have reached out about Joseph.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people like that musical. No, just that they like it. They like it.
I mean, it's a great show.
I know, but I was surprised. It hasn't been in the States since like the 90s. But a lot of people, I think, growing up were about that life.
Broadway, that's true.
Yeah, or like the Donny Osmond crew in Chicago.
I actually saw it in Agunquit, Massachusetts. Agunquit is the oldest theater playhouse in the country, in Agunquit, Maine. How about that?
It's in Maine?
It was touring. It wasn't like there all year, but it was in Maine.
Wait, I'm confused. I thought you said it was in Boston.
It was in Agunquit, Maine.
Oh, it's just this theater in Maine.
Yeah, it's like the oldest theater in the country, and they do like a month of this show. They bring in people from all over. It's big time.
All right.
Yeah,
I can't believe in the last pod that you questioned if I'm cultured.
I did.
I've played basketball in I bet I've played in 30 countries. I modeled for Giorgio Armani. I have the photo. I'm on a magazine. I'm modeling for Armani. Have you ever done that?
No, and I don't believe. I honestly,
I sent it to you.
I just don't believe it.
I picked up a magazine on an Italian basketball magazine, and I am on it modeling. I
want to see who else was on your team that they picked you to model.
Charles Jenkins.
Okay, poor Charles.
Jamel McLean. Oliver Lafayette. Gani Lawal. Gani models
way better looking.
Gani modeled some for Armani.
Right. I mean, Gani's good looking. I just
Gani
saw him
was
about a month
also
ago.
jacked. Gani was in really good shape.
Yeah.
Well, they saw my physique, man. Like that photo, it's the real deal. Giorgio picked me. But yeah, to question that was a ridiculous statement. You've been eating McDonald's for lunch and dinner for the last 4 weeks.
No, I played pickleball twice in the last 3 days. Twice in the last 3 days, I played pickleball. I almost died yesterday, actually. It's hot out here. It's like 80 degrees in Florida.
You need to get on your reporting grind.
Well, I'm going to have to, I don't know. I do need to get in shape before we play pickleball out in San Antonio. By the way, my wife just texted me. She's in the next room. She can hear us talking about Joseph in Agunquit. You know who played Joseph in that show? Clay Aiken. Clay Aiken.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right. American Idol.
Yeah. You're a big American Idol guy, right?
Did he lose or win against Ruben Studdard?
I think he lost to Big Ruben. I think so.
Took an L. Sorry, Clay.
Right?
You get to be Joseph.
Exactly.
What a consolation. You don't get this record deal, but you get to be Joseph.
And you get to be Joseph in a Gunkwit, Maine. It's not just like
how many people does this theater seat?
Small, tiny, like, I don't know.
Is this like the equivalent of playing at the Palestra?
Yes.
Like what?
Yes. Very
So if
similar.
you perform there, it would be, even though it's not as big as others, you'd want
Huge.
performers would want to go there.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's big time. And it's like a great little town in Maine. You can go get probably a lobster roll during the day.
Did like Charlie Chaplin perform there, or like
That I
did
don't
anybody
know.
famous?
You can
from
do
back
your
in the day?
research. Maybe ask AI right now who, some stuff about the Gunkwit Playhouse. All right.
I'll ask Alan Iverson about that.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate you for, this is a lot for you. I mean, last night, late night, you wake up, fly in. Now you got this. You got no game tonight, though. That's good.
True. I will
No
be
game.
at Creighton. Big one Saturday.
But you
Creighton
got tomorrow
Marquette.
night off, too. Friday night off.
Yeah.
Creighton, where's the game?
It's at Creighton. I am gearing up I have a pretty light week these first two, but after that, it's game on. It is game on. It's a little bit intimidating to look at the schedule here.
You better get your naps in. And we'll see you next week. Goodman and Hummel Pod. Make sure you subscribe. Give us any comments. Again, if you'd rather see Kirk Risa for next year, just make it be known. Because
please, God, just like flood the comments with "We want to see Kerr."
All right, there you have it. We'll see you next week.